all made by one meme. I mean man. When discussing anything within the mecha genre, there must be no escape from discussion of Yoshiyuki Tomino. While the man didn't invent the conceit of giant robots, I would argue he's responsible for why we consider it a genre at all. That's not to put down other important creators in mecha anime. Ryosuke Takahashi, who came up the same time as Tomino, has several originals of his own, like Botoms and Leisner. And yes, the Yusha Brave series is extremely important too. Though, there doesn't seem to be one singular mastermind behind that project besides maybe Yoshitomo Yonitani? They immediately come to mind as a close second and third, and I can name several others, but they still don't have the longevity and notoriety of Tomino. His work is the definition of prolific, being the creator of 8 completely unique mecha series that aren't Mobile Suit Gundam, as well as Mobile Suit fucking Gundam, the 14th highest grossing media franchise on Earth, of which he's helmed 8 of its 20-something installments. And what's maddening is, he's still at it after almost 60 years in the industry, 48 of those as a director, currently working on a 5-film pentology adaptation of his last TV series, Reconquista in G. To understand Gurren Lagann's influences, you need to watch a Tomino anime. And I'm not necessarily suggesting Gundam either. His work shares a lot of similarities with each other, and subsequently shared with Gurren Lagann. The first and most glaring inspiration is the large and eccentric ensemble cast. Gurren Lagann and most Tomino anime populate themselves with a wide crew of unique, memorable characters of all ages, sizes, genders, and levels of intelligence. It's a hodgepodge of wackos with memorable names. Literal children are often on board, and everyone's barely holding it together. They're usually found aboard one ship and gathered together by nothing more than coincidence, and must work together to fight against the formidable, organized, and often militarized bad guys. It's a great dynamic that pits impossible odds against ordinary people. And it's not simply the cast, but there's similar tropes in the individual characters too. The 4 generals in Gurren Lagann function like the various parades of officers in Tomino's anime, such as Gundam's Zabi family, with each unique general falling one by one to the titular mecha, which, like Lagann, most Tomino protagonists either steal and or unearth. But no matter what, they always inexplicably know how to pilot it from the word go. Simone and Kamina each represent the 2 brands of protagonists you'll typically find in a Tomino anime. They're either guns blazing, overconfident, manly men like Kamina, or the awkward, in-over-his-head young boy like Simone, who also from time to time gets that fierce, angry burst of motivating energy that gives them the edge. Either one can be compelling because you never know what to expect, and it's a really fun dynamic to see these 2 archetypes bounce off each other in the same show. It's like the best of both worlds. And then you have Viral as the classic Tomino trope of the one soldier or commander who gets pitted against our heroes from the very beginning, becomes a vengeful rival, and always manages to scrape by loss after loss, only to wind up as an ally by the end of it, most notably like Gundam and Ideon. The heroines are also common Tomino tropes. Yoko as the strong, capable, and brash action hero with a romantic side, and Nia as the sweet, motherly type who's also royalty tied directly to the bad guys in some way. She's even brainwashed later into working for the enemy, much like Elchi in Sabungal, which Imaishi has said was a major inspiration for Gurren Lagann, which we'll touch more on later. But everyone, from the heroes to the villains, are always very loud-spoken and brimming with attitude. Those speeches in Gurren Lagann are literally how Tomino characters talk in a casual setting. This is a tangent, but also my video, and I can do what I want. Tomino anime always have this boisterous, declarative way of speaking. Either talking out loud exactly what's happening or what they're feeling.
Sarah is actually pretty sexy. Her clothes make her look skinny.
How dare you!
Or making these angsty, verbose accusations or platitudes to one another.
This is no Zaku, boy! No Zaku!
It can often come across as awkward or robotic, like this just isn't how humans talk to each other. It's comedically most apparent to me in arguably Tomino's most infamous work, Garzy's Wing.
Oh my god, I felt like I was having a dream! There is a war going on! Even dinosaurs are here! I must somehow make sense of our convoluted situations.
I'm not kidding you, minus the awful vocal performance, that's more or less how his characters talk. It's so blunt and straightforward, it can wrap back around as genuinely engaging. It's especially funny in a show like Zabungle, which is more of a comedy that's actually self-aware. And breaks the fourth wall. But even in Tomino's dramas, it's very melodramatic and passionate dialogue. Once you accept that's just how they talk, they really come alive and act like characters. Again, they're all unique, never feel like clones of each other or copycats of his previous work, mostly. And all of them equally capable of being unpredictable, abrasive, lovesick, or completely fucking stupid, and it's fantastic! Gurren Lagann's characters would fit perfectly in a show like Zabungle or Zambot 3. There's a great mix of serious, goofy, and unstable. There are side characters you can get attached to despite knowing almost nothing about them. And they're so unique and memorable that they can stick with you for years after you finish watching. I will say, they're a lot less angsty than how Tomino might write them. You don't exactly have characters constantly slapping each other. Lagann is well loved for how positive and uplifting it is, but I personally can't help but get more enjoyment out of Tomino's more erratic, pressure cooker cast that obviously can't stand one another, but somehow come together and succeed in spite of it. But still, it was bizarre how often during my rewatch I thought Gurren Lagann felt like a Tomino anime. Gurren Lagann fans who say they aren't mecha fans have no idea what they're talking about. It's no different from the rest of the genre that Tomino pioneered. I said before Tomino is not the creator of giant robots, but he is widely credited as the creator of real robots. For the unaware, there's a difference between super robot anime and real robot anime. The easiest distinction is whether the robot has unlimited, almost cartoonish superpowers, or more like an actual robot that can break or run out of power. Yes, it's all fiction, and robots that are 20 meters tall are never going to be actually practical, let alone possible, and Unlike my Berserk video, I'm going to make a point in saying this distinction is a gradient and not binary, but making the effort to ground these robots in some shape of reality can lend to better immersion and storytelling. There's more tension for one thing. Characters can run out of ammo any second, and you know if the windshield breaks, they're gonna be exposed to the elements. Zabungle has its share of physical slapstick comedy, but it still maintains a sense of danger for the characters due to its choice of real robots over magical super robots. But it's not just the robots that are affected by this. The characters have to resort to real strategy too. There's a lot more techno-jargon and decision-making because it isn't as simple as calling out an attack and willing it to happen, all as a means of grounding the anime in reality. This represents practically half of all anime in the mecha genre, and as I said earlier, it's Tomino that's entirely credited for it. In the twilight of an era in the 1970s, where super robot anime was becoming oversaturated, Studio Sunrise wanted to mature from subcontracting work into a respected studio that made original anime that could be considered featured film material, like Space Battleship Yamato. After 2 attempts at making super robot anime, they had one last chance before needing to dial back. At one of their meetings, nobody seemed to have any ideas, except Tomino, who pulls out 30 pages of ideas that would become the pitch for Mobile Suit Gundam. As overtread as I think it is to talk about how important Gundam was to mecha anime, it actually strongly relates to the dynamic of Kamina and Simone in Gurren Lagann. I'll let Gundam's animation director and character designer Yoshikazu Yasuhiko explain.
主人公って大体かっこいいと。で正義感にあふれてて頭もいいかもしくは悪いか悪くて運動能力がこうある程度ひたすら元気とかねみんなに愛されるっていうそういうヒーロー中心的な主人公当たり前ですけどねそれに飽きてるんですよだからそうじゃないのをやりたい
Kamina represents the mantle and spirit of super robot anime, while Simone represents real robot anime. Super robots are bold, brazen, energetic, and cool, but ultimately became a fad and burned out quickly. Real robots, however, are more calculated, meticulous. They didn't catch on right away, like Simone's drill digging little by little, but ultimately endure and outshine its predecessors, becoming a lifelong icon and piercing the heavens. It's why mecha anime is still being made, albeit maybe not as much these days. Imaishi has said, while Makishima brought his experience of Getter Robo to the project, Imaishi brought his experience on Gundam and real robots, which provided the framework and vehicle of a real robot anime for an otherwise over-the-top masculine super robot anime. Gurren Lagann has many calling cards of classical super robot anime, not just from Getter Robo, of course. From the title cards showing each robot's names, to the extended transformation sequences, to all the little nods and homages to attacks and poses from a library of its ancestors. And of course, it has a Monster of the Week structure too. But it's good Monster of the Week, paced much like Tomino and real robot anime. There's still a foe to face every week, but they're often recurring or have miniature arcs to them, changing up their abilities while steadily increasing the difficulty, forcing the heroes into scenarios where they have to problem solve, to the delight of the audience. It's not episodic like most super robot anime. There's a clear ongoing storyline, which might not seem very special considering what we've come to expect from anime, but we have Gundam and real robot anime to thank for that mentality. The very reason Gurren Lagann is set in a desert, according to Imaishi, is as a tribute to Tomino's series Zabungle. Not only does it make for a great parallel to the classic Western genre, with showdowns and long journeys with no rules, it also allows the robot action to happen believably without damage to property or innocent bystanders. You can tell this is a concern for the characters of Gurren Lagann during the show's second half, where there's consequences from Simone recklessly blowing up an anti-spiral ship. And that's in stark contrast to super robot shows like Getter Robo and Mazinger, where there's hardly any repercussions for the destruction they cause. I think consequences are a significant trait to mecha anime, but Tomino actually brought that to the table even before Gundam. To reiterate, before Gundam, super robots were the mecha genre. There was no such thing as ammo. The robots recovered completely after every fight. And even when entire cities were leveled to nothing, it didn't matter so long as the good guys won anyway. Tomino wanted to push against this idea with Zambot 3, because as he would prove later with Gundam, he saw potential in robot anime to be more dramatic. In Zambot 3, there's just as much focus on the cool super robot action as there is focus on the ramifications of such violence. These alien robots are wrecking havoc, and Zambot 3 comes and saves the day. But nobody thanks them because the heroes are partly responsible for all the damage, and in some ways are directly responsible for the aliens attacking them in the first place. A little piece gets cut off from one of the enemies, and it would crash onto a cruise ship with hundreds of refugees trying to flee from their coastal city's annihilation. And you can see scores of people losing their lives in an instant. It's brutal. And this threat can't be stopped without significant self-sacrifice on behalf of the crew. Nearly the whole cast gets killed off. It's where the infamous nickname Kill 'Em All Tomino started from. But as I mentioned in my Ideon video, people love bringing this nickname up without asking why. When talking about one of his other more controversial works, Victory Gundam, Tomino had this great interview with Hideaki Anno where he mentions this.
Recently there have been rice shortages from time to time. It's a very good thing in my opinion. It allows them to imagine a little bit more seriously a case where there really isn't any more food. The advantage for people creating entertainment in that case is to be able to say, sorry if this is disturbing, but we're showing these austere parts in the anime you like as well, in case it helps in 10 or 20 years from now.
The man himself is a very eccentric character, like the ones he populates his series with. He's often very outspoken and doesn't pull his punches talking about the industry or other creators. As an example, he happens to name all the different robots or vehicles or even characters weird names like Gelgoog, Iron Gear, and Kitty Kitten, just because he knows the higher-ups don't actually care about the show and will approve whatever names he sends them. But even with his trademark cynicism and idiosyncrasies, mood swinging from lighthearted goofiness to grim, merciless brutality, even if he says he hates anime, you can tell, watching his shows, that Tomino cares about anime a lot, and what it's capable of. Zambot 3's ending elevated what could have easily been just a Saturday morning cartoon, and made it a legend, to the point where Imaishi himself said in an interview with Otaku USA, he wished he could have an ending for Gurren Lagann as epic as the finale of Zambot 3. Obviously, temper your expectations a little. They aren't throwing galaxies like shurikens or facing down an attack the size of the Big Bang in that one. But characters getting picked off one by one in rapid succession, like in Gurren Lagann, is especially Tomino inspired. While Tomino gets a lot of credit for what he's done, he doesn't get nearly the same amount of respect. He's treated as a meme by our community. I guess they're put off by how ridiculous or messy or crazy his characters can be. How he can be somehow both too silly and too grimdark. He says all the most outrageous things in his interviews. He's too weird to be taken all that seriously. Anime's a serious medium, guys. He must be a hack that just got lucky that one of his series took off. Don't give that guy any creative freedom. He's nuts if you let him loose. He needs to be reined in.
Idiot! Colossal dumbass! Colossal moron!
How dare anyone say that about Tomino? How dare anyone say anything like that about one of the most hardest working, important figures in the anime industry?
マジンガー Z の超合金の手がパーンって飛ぶロケットパンチが飛ぶようなそのガンダムの超合金で手が飛ぶようなやつを作って おもちゃが売れないためだ何やってんだ電話のなんかもうこっちでペコペコすいませんでしたすいませんでしたみたいなで電話切れたってため息つきながら大学生とか高校生が送ってくれるそのファンレター読んで元気をもらってみたいなそういうその後ろ姿を見てましたからだからなんとか富野さんのやってることも安彦さんのやってることも間違ってないとスポンサーから上の人たちが責められながらもなんか防波堤になりながらそのスタッフにそういう苛立ちをなるべく見せないように現場ではよくしようみたいな
I don't care how bad you think Garzy's Wing is. Do not judge a man's body of work by a 3-episode OVA. Watch Ideon. Watch Zaboongle. Watch the show Garzy's Wing is based on. That's basically the first anime isekai. I totally get fans who don't vibe with him right away. I personally wasn't much of a fan of his work for a long time after watching 3 of his Gundam series. But once I became aware of his character writing, his creativity, and both his sense of humor and melodrama, I really started to enjoy his anime and became a Tomino fan. The show that really made it all click for me was Overman King Gainer, but maybe it'll be different for you. Yoshiyuki Tomino has had a lasting impact on anime. He is why giant robot anime are where they are today, including Gurren Lagann. There's a misconception that Tomino has a propensity for bleak and dour endings. Yes, there's more than one of his series where almost everyone dies, but that shouldn't automatically mean they're negative endings. In every single one that I've seen, the battles conclude, and the characters are left at peace. The bitterness makes it all the more cathartic and satisfying. I think Gurren Lagann takes after that too. It's an ending that feels bittersweet. Not just because some of the characters didn't make it out on the other side, but also because it's ending. This great show with characters we've come to love is over. That's often what Tomino endings feel like. Not because so many characters died or bad things happened, but it's the end of a really good thing.